All right, so we have Miss Brittany, who is Foster the Teens on TikTok. If you're on TikTok and you're on the foster care side of TikTok, she is going to be showing up. I have dubbed her the queen of foster care TikTok because she is just absolutely incredible. I appreciate what you do, all of the content that you share. I am just, yeah, I am definitely fangirling and
Ditto.
so
Ditto.
excited that you agreed to come on and talk to our audience. So, and I see you're rocking your Foster the Teen shirt.
Yes.
You're gonna have to mention that later, how we can get our hands on that merchandise because I know I want to be rocking that Foster the Teens. But yeah, so tell our viewers a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started as a CASA, as a court-appointed special advocate. I was in that role for about 3 years, serving a teenage girl in foster care and working as her advocate. And after I moved back to Alabama, I kind of thought, I'd like to go ahead and get my license and become an actual foster parent. And so got my license in October of 2019. And at the time, my job I was traveling a ton, and I knew I wouldn't be able to do full time all the time because I'm parenting single and all those kind of things. And
Yeah.
so I decided to do emergency care, which was something they said, we really need that for teenagers. And I knew that teenagers is where I wanted to be. And so since then, I've had almost 50 kids placed with me in the last year and a half, all in emergency placement situations. So anywhere from usually like 12 hours to a week is
Wow.
when I normally have them. But it honestly, I don't think it'll surprise anybody who's in foster care to know that, if you don't have a placement for a kiddo, like they, sleep at the office or, they try to find whatever placements they can for them. So what emergency foster parenting allows is those kids to like not have to sleep on a mat on the floor in an
Mm-hmm.
office, get to be with a family in a home and be taken care of and loved and go and get to do activities and things like that while they're trying to find a more permanent placement or if they're trying to find a relative or things like that.
Right.
So in late April, one of my teams encouraged me. She said, Miss Brittany, there's like all these foster parents on TikTok, but they all do like little kids. Like you need to do one and talk about fostering teens. And I said, I
Yes.
don't know how to do TikTok. Like that's I'm too old for that. I'm like a Facebook, Instagram girl. They're
Mhm.
like, no, you need to do it. I'll help you with it. And so I decided to start a TikTok, and it has since just kind of blown up because I was beyond shocked because I was like, who's going to care about watching videos about foster care, especially
Yeah.
emergency care like I do? And I've been just overwhelmed with the response and the support that I've
Yeah.
gotten from the whole TikTok and TikTok foster care community. And so it's been a fun ride just talking about foster care the
Oh,
last
for
few months
sure.
on TikTok,
Yeah, and it is
as you
so
know.
right. Yeah, I think it's always really interesting that when you start speaking about your experience, whatever it may be, I'm always just so surprised at the amount of people who aren't involved in foster care or child welfare at all and who find interest in it. And so, again, like I just think what you're doing is really putting out a really positive message, a really informative message, and I love that you have fun with it. Like because I just totally enjoy you doing all of those trends and stuff and I try to keep up, but I just can't. But okay, so let's talk about that emergency placement because
Yeah.
I think that's a lot different than what our experience has been. And honestly, if I had to guess, I don't think there's really a need for it in our area. So maybe it's depending on where people are across the country. If there is a shortage of foster homes, foster families, there's going to be a need for what you're doing. So you said anywhere from 12 hours to a week. Can you talk about how do you prepare? I think that's what people will want to know. Everybody's always asking, how do you prepare for a placement? And I think for you that's a unique case and what those calls are like. And I can imagine it's anytime, any day. Yeah, what's that like?
Yeah. And, I think it does depend on your area, whether this is a big need or not. But I will say, people say, oh, I want to be an emergency caregiver. I want to do babies for just, a week or so. And I'm like, I don't get calls for babies. I
Yeah.
get calls for the kids that are harder to place because they're older, because they may have, more needs and things like that.
Hmm.
So I think, when someone gets into emergency foster care, know that you're going to get a lot of calls for teenagers, and you're
Yeah.
going to get a lot of calls for kind of higher needs kids. And it's very different. And I tell people, I'm like, people think that what I would do would be easier, but there are some days I'm like, man, it'd be nice to just have like foster kids that I knew and were able to be with my schedule and were able to,
Yeah.
I didn't have to play this kind of bed breakfast role all the time,
Yeah.
that there would be more of a relationship,
Yeah.
which is, what long-term fosters get to do is build that relationship. The child kind of gets into your family schedule and your family life, and
Sure.
you're not constantly having to meet new kids and introduce them to the same things over and over.
Yeah.
But there is something just, pretty amazing about getting to meet so many different kids,
Hmm.
and getting to get to know them and spend time with them and help them feel comfortable even for a short amount of time. So it's definitely not everywhere. You're definitely going to get more calls for older kids.
Hmm.
And I think that preparing, in the beginning, I didn't know what to have on hand. I got my first call and I went shopping for like a month's worth of groceries because I was like, I don't know what she's gonna want to eat. I'm just gonna get everything. And she was with me for like a week. But I think it kind of started. I always had like a little basket on the bed with toothbrush and toothpaste
Hmm.
and soap and things like that on it. And then as I got more kids, that welcome basket kind of evolved. I started realizing, a lot of kids were coming with, very minimal, items. And
Right.
so hygiene products were really important. And then I thought, a lot of kids were asking me for, do you have a pen? Do you have, a piece of paper? Can I draw? Can I whatever? And
Hmm.
so I started including a journal. And then I fuzzy socks in one of the baskets. That was for like 3 days straight. I was like, okay, fuzzy socks. So we're going to add that to the list. I think it just kind of evolves in how you welcome them. But it's almost second nature to me now when I get a child. But I usually get a text message or a call that says, here's the child, here's what we know about them. Would you be willing to take them tonight? We think we have a foster family lined up, or, their aunt is finishing the paperwork so that she can get placement of this child, or,
Hmm.
child's going to be going to grandma. We just need, a couple of nights so that we can, get everything in line. So you're kind of just in this in between quite often, but it's definitely interesting. It keeps you on your toes. You operate a lot in the gray area.
Yeah.
If you don't like spontaneity and last minute and you like to have your life organized, it might not be the best bet for you. But if you're up for an adventure, if you love meeting new people,
Yeah.
if you're kind of like, I can wing it, I can go with it, then yeah, it can be an interesting part of foster care to get involved in.
Yeah, and that makes me, oh gosh, I have so many ideas now because one, I feel like it's kind of like the closest experience we've had to that is probably respite. So as a foster family, in between placements, when we're not ready to take a, more permanent placement, we provided respite, and it was a little bit of what you're describing. You don't really know what to prepare for. You're building a relationship, and you're being a role model, but it's on a smaller scale. But also I feel like during that time, I felt like the fun aunt, like, oh, like they came to our house and there's not as many
Yeah,
rules because,
right.
you don't really have to plan for a routine or
They're not
stability.
long, so yeah, you don't have to work on that very hard. And I did have one long-term placement, and I will say it was quite different, right? I had her
Yeah.
for 2 months. Not, I she didn't leave because I wanted her to. Just, things changed in our case and things, but she was with me for 2 months, and I'll say, I really learned it's a different kind of foster care when you do more long term,
Yeah.
because short term respite emergency, you do get to be the fun aunt. You don't
Yeah.
have to lay down the law so much.
Yeah.
You don't have to, figure out rules in school and, you know, other, things that happen when you have a more long term child.
Yeah.
So I will say, you get them in a lot of their honeymoon periods. You get them a lot in,
Exactly.
the nice part. So I will say that is a fun part of it. There are, another part of emergency is you do get kids that are coming in on the night they come into care.
Yeah.
And I will say those are my absolute hardest ones
Yeah.
because, if you've got a kid that's been in care, that's just moving between homes, that's moving,
Hmm.
they know the drill, and they, can find a way to
Make it work.
just enjoy make it work. Enjoy your home. They'll have fun. It'll be great.
Yeah.
The kids that are just coming into care, and I don't know, you've taken kids that very first night, but it's like a whole range of emotions from you,
Sure.
from them. And I mean, it's just a strange experience
Yeah.
to have just a kid come and dropped off at your house. They have no idea who you are. You don't know who they are. And
Yep.
you're just trying to like soothe them after, possibly the worst day of their lives. So
Yeah.
that
That's
part
like
of
a
emergency care is not my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, that's like such a trauma-filled day for them. And I think it takes an extra level of patience and understanding to be that caregiver that's there that first day. Definitely, we haven't experienced that. We've experienced close to it, but yeah, it's a different experience. It
Yeah.
is. Something else that made me think is when you talk about how like emergency placement, maybe they're not finding a foster family, a more permanent foster family, but they're looking for kinship. And I do know,
Yeah.
especially in our state in Ohio, there is just more and more conversation about putting kinship first, really trying to strengthen those efforts in identifying close family and friends. Um, and I could honestly see a shift in some areas where a foster caregiver is very rarely going to have children for a long amount of time, and that we are really the go between until family can be supported in making sure that they can take in those kids. So
I mean,
that's
that would be the
interesting.
dream, right? That
Yeah,
would be the dream, so that these kids stay with their families. They
absolutely.
are with people that are related to them. I
Yeah.
mean, I think as a system, we don't support kinship as much as we do
No.
foster parents.
Mm-mm.
They don't have the same resources, financial or otherwise. They aren't seen as on the same level, even though they're raising children that they did not make,
Right.
which is exactly the same thing that foster families are doing. So I think as a system, we have to do a better job of letting them have the same supports,
Yeah.
the same resources,
Yeah.
and seeing them as foster families, and
Yep.
not, I'm just raising my brother's kids. No, you're, raising children, period,
Yeah.
that you didn't make. And I think, they can support kinship. And I think the rules for kinship are a little tough too.
Sure.
I know it's tough because there's a lot of people who get not allowed, who would be willing to take
Yep.
their niece, their grandchild, their
Yep.
best friend's child, whatever it may be. Yes, I want her. Yes, I want him. I want to take care of them. But for whatever reason, we've made it harder,
Yeah.
because we want to hold them to the same level as foster parents, which
Mm-hmm.
I see on one side. Yes, that's a good idea. But on the other side, we're holding them to the same level as foster parents to the detriment of them being able to stay in their
Right.
family. So that's a whole different tangent for a different
Yeah.
day. But I think
No,
that,
I
yes, to
love
your point, I would love a system where foster parents just keep them for a few days while, their kinship caregivers are getting beds and clothes and everything set up, and
yeah.
they are, covered in resources and support so
Yep.
that they can take this child into their home. That would be a
Yeah.
fantastic system if
And
we were able to
also
make that work.
I mean, I could go on this tangent for a while, and I think we should, but I also think that giving resources to families to just maintain the kids in the home before disrupting that family. I will say with
Yeah.
kinship, so my husband and I were talking about this, and because we're in a unique situation, and we're not fostering right now, but there could be potential where we have family who
Mm.
ends up with kids who are in care, and would we be considered kinship? And we got into this big discussion on, we've had family who have gone to, we've had kids removed and placed elsewhere within the family, even though like we're the we're the licensed
Right.
trauma informed parents. There's, like I said, I could go on a tangent, and maybe I will in a
Right.
future video talking about it. But yeah,
Well,
kinship
and things
is
like, I mean, I think that there's a lot of legal hoops too that they have to go through. Yes, they require that foster parents, don't have felonies. But if you're a kinship caregiver and you haven't had a felony in, 10, 20 years and still not being allowed to take care of your child,
right.
that's tough for me. And kind of, loosening the restrictions a little bit, for kinship would
Yeah.
be something that I would hope to advocate for. But I can't imagine a politician going, no, I want to make it easier for felons to force
Right,
kids.
right. Because
Like, no
there's,
one wants to be that person, but if you
right.
think about it in the system wide, you're like,
Yeah, like,
oh,
yeah, the system, there's a lot of things broken in. Yeah, we could go on some tangents
yeah.
here. I love it, but
I could definitely go
well,
somewhere. Yeah, I hear you.
yeah, so okay, I have so many more questions. Okay, so next I'm really curious the practical side of having kids for a very short amount of time. So I think one thing that people always want to know is, the per diem, the stipend for the kids. And from my experience, I know that the first few days and week that the kids are spending with us, those are the most expensive days. We will drop hundreds of dollars those first days, making sure those kids get all the food, like you said, get a month's
Mm-hmm.
worth of food because you don't know what they want. You
Get a
don't want
whole
a
wardrobe,
whole
get,
wardrobe,
all the resources.
activities.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so in my mind, I'm calculating, okay, if you only have them for 3 days, maybe you get $100, but you're spending like how
Yeah.
how how do you
Yeah.
how do you manage that?
Well, so a few things. Number one, I made it a point because I knew that I wanted to be in a financially good place to foster. I made it a personal goal of mine to become debt free
Yeah.
before I became a foster parent. And that was important to me. It's not required, like it's not,
No, but
you have to do that.
congratulations.
But
That's
thank
huge.
you.
That's
But it made a
huge.
big difference so that I could use my money
Yeah.
how I wanted to.
Mhm.
And this was where I wanted to concentrate that effort.
Yeah.
And yes, it is super expensive. When you've got kids that come with nothing, a Target run is easily $200, $300
Yeah.
for clothes and basic necessities
Yeah.
that they need that, people don't really think about,
Yeah.
like shoes and underwear and all that stuff adds up, pajamas,
Yeah.
it adds up very quickly. So I'll say number one, that yes, it is a more expensive part of foster care. I will say it is super expensive to your point because you're doing it over and over and over again.
Do you get
Um,
vouchers with the emergency
no,
placement? No.
no,
Wow.
no.
That's
And I get paid about $18 a day for
wow.
emergency placements. So
Yeah.
it's not something that is, well funded by my stipend.
Sure.
But I will say I also have an incredible village of friends who, when I said I wanted to be on this journey, they were like, we are with you. And
Oh,
they 100% meant it. I have an ongoing Amazon wish list that I just post for my friends. And I can't even get stuff posted before it's already bought and in the
I love
mail.
that.
And I wish every foster parent had this support system
Yeah.
that said, listen, I can't foster or I'm not in a place to in this moment, but your kids need socks delivered tomorrow, done,
Yeah.
and that's really, they're the ones who stock my foster closet with toiletries and other needs. They're the ones who, when I say, hey, I have a child in foster care who came to me with nothing, I've put a bunch of stuff on the registry.
Yeah.
If anybody be willing to buy me some underwear and pajamas, and it's there.
Yeah.
So while I do get things in emergency care, if they're with me for a few days, I have a village of people who will like just Amazon me, Target pickup,
Yeah.
whatever it is, to make sure that the kids are taken care of. And I would hope that every foster family, or I would dream that every foster family had that, so that
Yeah.
they had somebody that said, "Oh, you got a kid. What does she need?" I mean,
Right.
that's just the question that I get asked. So it is more expensive, but I'm very lucky to have a
Yeah.
group of friends, and I really do call them my village.
Yeah.
I love that you use that term
I
because they really are,
yep.
and they make what I do possible because it's not just emotional support they offer me, and it's not just, but it's literally, listen, we will pay for these kids because they matter.
Right.
And I think that that is just a demonstration of how much people want to help. They just don't know how.
Yeah.
And when we make it easier for them to help, people are all in. People
Yep.
are all in.
Yep.
They just don't know how to. Yes, foster care is a problem, but what can I do?
Yep.
And I'll give as many tangible ways that you can help as I physically can.
Yeah.
And if people, one day decided, no, we don't want to buy anything anymore, the kids would still have everything that they needed,
Right.
from me. That's never been an issue, but I love that I do get that support.
Yeah. No, you're hitting on some really, really important things. And I do think that that's why what we do, both TikTok and YouTube, raising this awareness with people who aren't involved, who can
Mm-hmm.
who can give in those ways, it's huge, and I wish that we could scale it so that it could hit all over, hit every foster, especially emergency placement. Because I just really sympathize with the temporary nature in which these kids are coming to you and the lack of resources that you get. And I am glad that you do have that village behind you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of, I do want to talk about something really positive because you have really blown up on TikTok. Like, you are incredible. And I saw the other day, like last week, that you have, okay, I'm going to let you talk about it, but you've raised
Yeah.
enough money. People have purchased different things, and you're putting on a huge event for kids in care. What is
Yeah.
that about?
I mean, the TikTok thing, it was so crazy because I had people asking, can I donate? Can I donate? And, again, I have a closet full of stuff. And so I kept saying no, no, no. And then I thought, if people want to, I'll find a way to help some kids if they want to. And so between that, between the TikTok creator fund, between some ad revenue, from advertising that I did, I had this kind of pile of money, and I started thinking, what could be a fun thing that would, I mean, any money that I ever get is always going to be used to make life better for kids in care. And because I had this kind of nice chunk of money, I was like, I want to do something bigger than just my kids. And kids in group homes have my heart because it is just such a forgotten area. Because it's it's necessary for some kids, especially older kids, because there's just not enough homes. But I think so much of the independence, so much of the fun just can't happen there because of different rules and regulations and things like that. Because you have to do everything together. So at a group home, we're going to go see a movie. Everybody has to go see the same movie, and you're going to sit there and you're all going to ride together, and it's all going to be together. And so there's just not as much choice and fun put into it. So
But you did do
I
that
decided
too. You did rent a
I
movie
did do
theater.
that. Yes,
You rented a
I
movie theater,
did.
which was so exciting. And
It
you
was it was a crazy idea that I just saw the ads at AMC's, doing those $99 theaters during COVID, and I was like, $99?
go
I
for
could
it.
invite some foster families. Yeah, so I invited some foster families, and I put it out, and I said, hey, for $5, they were also running the popcorn and drink special for $5. I was like, hey, if you want to sponsor a kid or a foster parent to get popcorn and a drink, send me $5. And it ended up being enough donations in that event that we had not only foster families come with the kids, but we had a group from a group home come and see a movie on Halloween, which was super fun. We did Hocus Pocus for like the teens, and
Too
the families all
cool.
came dressed up, and everybody got popcorn and a drink and candy, and everything else was just a blast. And so after that, I was like, you know what, we can duplicate this in other ways. And so what I'm doing next Thursday for the summer bash at the group home, I got a whole bunch of inflatables that are all like teenage sized and approved. So not the little bounce houses, but like these gigantic obstacle courses and huge jumpy things and slides and all that. And then I reached out to some food trucks and, said it would be a lot of fun to have food trucks and let kids pick what they eat for dinner. Because in group homes, it's like a cafeteria, right? You eat what's served that night, and you don't really get to go out to eat a lot or pick out what you want. So I thought it'd be fun. So we've got po' boys and chicken fingers and pizza and like all this stuff, and then we've got ice cream and cotton candy and like little doozies with chocolate chip cookies and all this other sort of stuff. And the kids are going to get to just eat and play and kind of go wild. And then I had somebody suggest a photo booth, and I said, that's a really good idea too. So we got a photo booth coming so that the kids can take pictures with each other. They'll be able to hang them up in their rooms. It'll have like the date on them. It'll be like a little film strip. And it's just, I'm so excited. And I love that. I mean, and part of this is just relationships that I have within the foster care community, is being able to reach out to my contact at that group home and say, hey, something you'd be interested in? Could I do this with you guys again? And people have just continued to support it and donate to it. And I mean, I'm already thinking about what's the next thing we're going to do that's going to make life better for kids in care, because, again, people want to help. They just don't know how. And so if I'm the one that can come up with things and ideas for them to help, to have their support it still blows my mind. Like,
Yeah.
I still can't wrap my brain around the fact that we're doing this event next week and we've got 50 kids coming. They're
Oh my
all getting
gosh.
their own bags with water bottles and fidget toys and socks and, all sorts of fun stuff. And they're going to get to have 3 hours of unlimited play and eating and just be kids for a night. Just
Yeah.
honestly not think about foster care, not think about the fact that they're in a group home, but
Yeah.
just get to be teenagers and eat too much and compete with their friends and listen to music and take goofy pictures. And that's what all teens
Yeah.
deserve.
I literally was like tearing up because like just imagining all these kids and like exactly what you're saying. It's like let them be kids because
Yep.
and to have them, be able to make choices for themselves because their power has most often been stripped away.
Mm.
And it's something that is going to be a future video, but we gave a yes day and to kids who stayed with us, and it was a power. It was both fun and also it was giving them their power back. And we were lucky enough to help get that funded because it can be very expensive when you're trying to
Yeah.
give, if you're going to say yes to everything, that can add up. But yeah, I think that what you're creating, I do think that that's replicatable, if that's a word, because I mean there are so
Yep.
many people out there who could raise the money or find the food trucks who are willing to donate their time and get sponsored, and this could happen all over. Like I'm already trying to think like,
Yeah.
okay, as long as I haven't burned enough bridges, like can I can I do this somewhere close to us?
Yeah, and honestly, it doesn't even have to be this grand a scale. I mean, they're constantly, you can call a group home and say, "I'd love to do an arts and crafts night with the kids. Like, just let
Yeah,
me bring a whole bunch of arts and crafts, and let the kids have something else to do for that night." Or,
yeah,
I'd love to bring a bunch of board games and let's do a game night. Or this little, I thought about doing like a little Olympics at, do some
yeah,
physical kind of races and stuff like that. But it these kids are our kids
yeah,
and they're our community kids, and nothing says you can't call a group home or a facility of some kind and say, what do you need? Like,
yeah,
tell me what would be helpful. There are also group homes that for mentors. They want mentors for these kids that'll come and just hang out with them for an hour and do something fun with them and make them feel special for an
yeah.
hour. And even if you can't foster, I mean, these kids are craving
Mhm.
attention and love and individual attention.
Yeah,
And I think that it's definitely replicable. There is nothing I do that is magic or unique in any way. It really isn't. And I would love to see more events and support happen around the country because there are phenomenal things that happen when a teenager thinks that someone believes in them.
yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
true for non-foster care
Yep,
teenagers, but especially for kids in care, they just need one person rooting for them,
yep,
one person that thinks they're awesome.
yep.
And if you can be that one person for that one kid, you can change the whole trajectory of their life. And I'm not saying that as like hyperbole. You can honestly
Oh,
change the
absolutely.
trajectory of their lives. And if you just get involved with one kid,
Yeah.
and if everybody did that,
We'd
the
be in a
whole
good
foster
place.
care system, the whole foster care system would be blown up, would not
Yeah.
know what to do with that much positivity.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, you've definitely inspired me to think, especially during this time where we're in a forced break
Mhm.
and we're not taking kids in. How can I do good? Because I mean, I've
Right.
just been in a weird place, and I'm not going
Yeah.
to make it about me, but it is this. Gosh, I want to do good. I want to do more, and I hadn't even thought about the group homes in our area. And we have had experience. We've had kids who have experienced the group homes in Cincinnati, and so I do have a little insight into what goes on there and what life is like. Yeah, and you mentioned before that you are a single foster parent, and I do get a lot of comments with people who watch the videos and they maybe don't know if they can, if they don't have a partner, if they're not in a relationship. And honestly, I have heard that in different areas that could be a restriction. But I guess what have you found as a foster parent? Well, you kind of talked about this a little bit, like having that village of friends and family to help
Mhm.
support. But what I mean, you're doing it and you're doing a great job. Like it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think to squash the myth, you absolutely can do this single.
Yeah,
30% of all foster families are single women.
yeah,
We are not some minority rarity thing, but we're raising 30% of the kids in foster care. And so it is, we have groups on Facebook. We are a very active, supportive community of single women who are doing this.
yeah.
And I think that it's somewhat easier in some ways because you don't ever have to ask anybody else for their opinion. You get to make all the choices. You know,
Yeah.
if you get a call for a placement, you don't have to like, oh, well, let me ask my spouse and, you know, make sure it's okay. No, you just say yes or no, whether you want to take a placement.
Yep, yep.
And I said, you know, the process is much easier too. It's literally half the amount of paperwork
That's
because it's
true.
just you and it's just your stuff. So it's a little bit easier from that perspective. I think there are considerations you have to think about. If you go into this without family support, it is very hard. And I don't want to lighten that up. I mean, I had family that was 100% on board. Whatever you need, they have loved my kids, supported my kids, have cared very deeply about every step of this journey.
Yeah.
And it is huge to have that emotional support,
Yeah.
even if they're not hands on, you know, taking care of the kids because maybe they're somewhere else. But having emotional support from your family members is so critical. If you
Well,
don't have that, have a real tight village of friends,
yeah.
you know, church, community, neighbors, whoever it is. And it's not just people who can come over and babysit or, you know, drop you off juice at, you know, 10 p.m. Those people are important and you need them. But you also need the people that you can just say, I'm really tired.
Yeah.
You need the people. I mean, I think about, it's going to make me emotional, but so my long-term placement that was with me for 2 months, it did not end on my terms. She ran away, and it was incredibly heartbreaking for me. And you know, running away is a whole different topic that we can get into about, you know, the whys and the trauma and the fight and flight and all that sort of stuff. I love her dearly. She loves me dearly. I still talk to her on a weekly or more basis. We have a fantastic relationship. I still spend time with her. You know, I love her
Good.
very much. But she ran and it was very heartbreaking for me. And it was hard to admit because I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
I felt like a failure. Even though logically I knew I wasn't a failure, I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
I felt like, what could I have done differently? How could I have supported her more? Why didn't she feel like she could talk to me or stay? All those questions that go through your mind. Meanwhile, you're dealing with police and, you know, filing reports and having to have a barrage of questions from your agency. I mean, there's a lot that happens when you have a child run away. And so having to admit that to some close friends and say, you know, she ran away. I don't know where she is right now. I'm looking
Right.
for her. I hope she's okay. Felt very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the week, not even the week, the month following that, I had friends send me flowers and cards and call and check up on me and say, you know, take me to dinner.
Yeah.
And those things that meant more than they'll ever know because it wasn't dropping off juice at 10 p.m., but it was emotionally like what I needed because I was in a really dark place and I was really close to just going, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I just want to quit because I'm obviously not good at this. And it's what it feels like. I mean, if you've ever had a child run, it does feel like that, even if there's nothing you did wrong and kids run and it happens, especially teenagers and older teens. But I think that having that village of support as a single woman, having people send you cards and flowers and call and check up on you and go, you know, what are you doing? Are you, you know, crying? Are you upset? Let me just FaceTime me and we're going to talk about it and we're going to get through it.
That's
and
huge.
So those people are crucial if you're going to do this single. Yeah, I think having a support system is so crucial, but it's also a lot of fun too. Like I have a blast as a single person going and doing stuff with my girls. We go get pedicures and we can go shopping and it's just a blast to be able to do that. And they have somebody that is solely dedicated to them.
Right.
And they feel super special when that happens. You know, they don't have to share me with other kids or with a spouse or anything like that. So for some kids, that is, magical.
Oh, for
So I will say
sure.
there are pros and cons, and you need to know your boundaries and your limits. Because I live alone and I'm single, I don't take kids that have any kind of history of, physical violence, because I'm alone. And if something happens, I wouldn't be able to protect myself and protect the child and all these things.
Yeah.
So things like that you have to consider and know your limits, right?
Yeah.
Could I take a child that's high needs? If I take a child with high needs, can I, as a single person, then take care of other children after that? Or would I need to dedicate my resources to that? So you really have to have honest conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
You want to believe that you could take on whatever.
Sure.
But when you're single and you don't have backup and you're doing this by yourself, you've got to be honest with yourself about what you can handle.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And while we're breaking down the myths, since you have had in a short amount of time so many kids come and go in your home, let's talk about breaking down those stereotypes with teens specifically, because obviously that's your name, Foster the Teens. We
Right.
as a
Right.
foster family, we are strong believers. Like I will take in teens any day of the week over younger kids. And I know that there are so many other people who, they would love to take the younger kids. There's just
I always say, God bless the newborn fosters, like the ones
yep,
who take newborn after newborn after newborn and just don't sleep ever.
yeah,
Like,
I don't
God be
know.
with them. I can't imagine.
But yeah, so the foster the teens specifically, I love that message that you're spreading. So I guess how have you approached through TikTok with your family and friends, really breaking down those stereotypes that teens are more trouble, they're more work, they're fill in the blank. What's your response to those different myths?
Yeah, people assume that that children are in foster care because their parents did something wrong, that teens are in foster care because the kids are bad. And I don't know why that stereotype is out there, but it's absolutely not true. My kids come in because their parents aren't able to parent them, just like a 2-month old comes into care. It's the same. It's the same thing. And I try to break down the myths by making them people. Like I talk about, oh, my placement this week was literally the funniest 14-year-old I've ever met in my life. I've told her if I don't have front row seats to her first comedy show, I'm going to be so mad because she is going to be on tour one day because the timing and the wit is unbelievable. She's so funny. And I try to talk about, things that the kids do that are just kid stuff and
Yeah,
they're funny, and just trying to make them kids and
because
just
they are.
people.
Yeah,
They are,
yeah,
because they are.
yeah,
But so often we just think that there's this mythical, bad, troublesome, whatever. And even the ones that do have behavior problems, do you just think 100% bad if your biological child has behavior problems?
right.
No, you still think that they have good qualities. And it's the
Yep,
same with kids in foster care. They've got good qualities and they've got qualities they have to work on.
yep,
They'll do. And so I think that trying to bring that to life, and that's really what I try to do on my TikTok too.
yeah,
I share the story of the 12-year-old playing a prank on me, not because it was anything super, not, but just that he's 12 and
yep,
he's funny, and 12-year-old boys are going to do goofy stuff like that,
yeah,
or they're going to have funny comments, and just things of that nature that just make them seem like kids and help them realize, yeah, they're exactly the same as other
yeah,
teenagers. You're going to deal with the attitudes and you're going to deal with that too, but you're also going to get to do a lot of cool stuff with them
yeah,
and get to know some really awesome people,
yeah.
because they really truly are.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree with that. The fact that, our toddler Sawyer, is an absolute terror, and it's like, oh yeah, terrible twos, but no, like he can be a terror. Like we're like, where
Right.
did you come from, kid? He can be a terrible kid,
Yeah.
but he's a kid. And
Yeah.
I think on our channel, especially when our previous foster daughter, who we refer to as Miss A, sharing those little bits about her and her personality, you know people fell in love with her and they were so shocked, but it's like we don't normalize that kids in care are just kids and they have amazing qualities. They've just been through a lot. And I just, like I said, I appreciate what you're doing and continuing to break
Yeah,
down those stereotypes and really highlight the need for us to be there for the teens. Like, let's not
right,
continue to stigmatize them,
right.
because we know the statistics of
Yeah,
if they don't have a foster home or find permanency, the statistics are stacked against them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think it's super super important.
Absolutely. And I think that, there's so much negative and there's so much that people talk about the hard side of these kids. And it's not to say that it doesn't exist.
Right.
And it's not saying that teens are easy and a walk in the park and you're never going to deal with any negative issues at all. It's not true at all. But just anything else that's hard, it's always worth it.
Right.
And the heart at the middle of it is what's the most important. And even if it doesn't work out, my long-term placement, even when it doesn't work out, you can still be that person. She
Right.
still calls me and asks me mom questions.
Yeah.
And she still, meets me for lunch and catches up with me, even though now she's, 18 and grown and all those sort of stuff. So I think that you can still be that person for them, even if it doesn't, if it is not the easiest road, you can still play that role. And to
Yeah.
your point, the statistics are bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're in an uphill battle constantly for the next forever. They will always be fighting it. And I think that if you don't have at least an anchor of some kind in the community that you can reach out to, you're just going to end up in those statistics. And our goal is to beat that. And I think that if we can get foster teens into foster homes, not group homes, not behavior facilities, not inpatients, not whatever. If we can get them into homes and families, if we can get them support and resources, if we can continue to support them after they age out, then we'll see those stats start to change.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree.
I love that this channel works so hard to put foster parenting in a good and true light. I think all of your videos and your personality and everything just really speaks to the fact that this is a community. And when you become a foster parent, you don't know that you do join this village, and you are going to get support, and you're going to have people that relate to you and are able to feel that connection. And it's something that I didn't know I was getting, coming into this, but I made so many friends along the way that have just totally transformed my life in wonderful ways. So I love that you're talking about it and encouraging people to foster and sharing the good, bad, and the ugly all around, because it
Thank
is.
you.
But I always say, the most beautiful things in life are the hardest, and the stuff that you go through and come out on the other side of is honestly going to be your best stories, your best memories, your best everything. So I think it's important to continue to talk about all those aspects of foster care.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
thank
hope you
you.
continue to do it.
Yeah, no, we definitely are doing everything we can, and I think that we're in unique positions, and everyone out there who is trying to raise awareness in such a positive way, an informative way, and fair way, because I think it's the worst thing that we could do is create a false sense of perfection in this area, because you're going to set people up for failure.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's constantly a battle of breaking down the stereotypes while also being real. And especially you want to respect, the kids. You don't want to air out
Correct.
certain behaviors and certain,
Hmm.
family situations. And so, yeah, it's important to know
Yeah.
that, people on the other side, they're seeing one lens, and that's the only lens that we can provide. But yeah, we're definitely at the forefront of trying to figure out a balance of this is what's next for like recruiting and retaining and educating people in this field, because I've been on the other side of it, and the formal way in which training is occurring and being developed is not good.
No.
And so I do think that we're at the forefront of trying to figure out like how to navigate this. And so,
Mhm.
we've been open about how we are, ready to learn and adapt. And so that's kind of what we're doing right now, but we're definitely going to, keep raising that awareness in the best way that we can. So, thank you so
Sure.
much for sharing just your wealth of knowledge and experience and your perspective. I highly urge all of you, especially if you're already on TikTok, if you haven't followed Brittany, go to at Foster the Teens. I'll even put like a merch link because I need to buy my shirt finally. So I'll put your merch link under there. And yeah, if you're not on TikTok, I don't know. It's a wormhole. Once you get in, you're not going to find your way out. I'm an addict for sure. But thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to
Thank
you
you for
again.
having me.
Yeah.